What's up, guys? We're back here on the Blue Collar Revolution podcast. We've got a great episode coming for you. We got Lance, an instructor at Western Welding Academy, coming through. He's going to be telling us about his career in the welding industry, where he's been, what he's done. Hopefully he gives us some really good advice for you guys. I'm super excited for this one. I haven't got to meet Lance very much or have many conversations with him, so I'm excited to see what we have in store. All right, guys, let's get to it. Here we are. Mr. Lance, thank you for joining us today. So you're an instructor here at Western Welding Academy. How long have you been working at Western Welding Academy?
I believe May 23rd will be a year. So I've just been here a year.
So you've been welding for a year. Just kidding. So tell me, how old were you when you started welding?
18. It's crazy in its own way. Because in high school, it was either I wanted to be a chef.
Oh.
But then here I am as a welder. But both of them are an art to me. I turned 18 on a Friday, and I went to work in a vessel shop on a Monday. And it was more like a sweatshop back in the day. We built towers like your refineries and whatnot. I worked there 2 months. I took 2 plate tests. And then after that, I was allowed to weld on structural stuff. And then from there, 2 months later, I took a pipe test. And
wow,
been welding ever since.
That was quick.
Yeah. It was self-taught.
You ever regret not being a chef?
Sometimes I do, yes, this is true. Because they don't have to, well, I say they don't because I haven't been on their level, but I would think they don't work 6 days a week. In our industry, you're going to work 6 days a week. It is what it is. So.
That's cool. So pretty much a lifetime of welding.
Yes, 36 years, add a year coming May for as far as, teaching. And so 37, be going on 37 years.
Where did you spend most of your time working at in your career?
I guess when I got started, Texas was kind of slow in certain ways, and then through the years, it just scattered out. But I've worked all over the continental U.S., mainly out west, the West Coast. East Coast-wise, as far as I've been to Florida, up to upstate New York, never really down the East Coast. In the middle, all through the middle. So I think I've hit 32 states I've worked. Okay. 6 in 1 year. Yeah, that was a lot.
A lot of traveling.
Yeah.
So were you majorly focused on pipe welding most of your career? Did you dabble in both structural and pipe? What was kind of...
I'd be honest with you, I dabbled in everything. Of course, when we started, it was the vessels, whatnot. But back in the day, the way it was, you had to learn everything to stay busy. And so to me, a complete welder can weld everything. Mm-hmm. And so I was never too proud to take a structural job. Back in the day, in the 80s, early 90s, a lot of companies, structural paid better than x-ray pipe. So we went where the work was at. And so it's you had areas where it was compressor stations, and then it was gas treatment plants or new gas plants or refineries. From there, that kind of would slow down, and you'd get up into rig-up yards building drilling rigs. But if somebody was paying to weld on a dumpster, no, I'd be there. It didn't matter to me,
Sure.
So I was never too proud. I was going to go where the money's at. I wanted to work. So you had to learn it all back in the day.
Yeah.
To stay busy, so.
Yeah, and I think that's super important. I like to tell the kids that same thing, right?
Bingo.
It keeps you employed, it keeps you busy, and you might go get a good refinery job for a little bit, but then when that slows down, or you got those guys that want to be just TIG welders or just...
Well, and when they do that, I tell them you're going to be hungry.
Yep.
Because there's so much out there. And a lot of guys will think, well, they're going to do it in 2 or 3 years. Man, it takes a good 10 years before you'll be able to look in the mirror and say, I'm a welder. Because there's so many different levels, so many different things you're going to see come across, from hot tie-ins on it, like a pipeline, stopple fielding, sleeves. I mean, there's just a variety. Boiler tubes, chrome, Inconel, your Monel, there's just so much out there. And like I said, I teach our students, or try to talk to our students about it and say, hey, everything we have to offer here, take it, learn it. That way you always stay busy, know. And then it makes you're actually a welder. You're complete, so.
Yeah, it makes you more employable, especially especially with like the pipe fitting side too. We teach both, learn both, keep yourself busy. You'll always have a job. You always have money coming in.
Yes, sir. Yep. The pipe part of it, the fabrication. If I had to go back and rewrite the script as far as what I do here, as far as welding in general, learn the fabrication when you're young. To me, it was boring. And most of these guys say, we just want to weld. But as I've gotten older, and then the more you got into it here and there, man, I'd rather fabricate than I would weld. It's more of a challenge.
Yeah.
The fabrication is a big part of it. Mm-hmm. It'll keep you on the job longer, for sure.
That was always my favorite thing. I love building. I love taking raw metal and making something out
Building
of it.
stuff, exactly, with your hands. And you can look back and say, oh man, I did that.
Yep.
You know, and you're like, wow, this is crazy, you know.
There's a sign right on Main Street that I built. You know, it's for Hayden Outdoors. It's a cool little thing.
Oh yeah, exactly, anything.
Just things like that, you know, and it'll be there for, I like to build stuff that I know that, you know, I'm like reinforcing my porch. Like, they're going to scrap that iron when they tear down this building.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's still going to be there.
It's because you can go, you know, it's like, it's as simple as like a barbecue pit. They mass produce those at certain places and you know, they're gauge material, thin.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to pay probably $300, $400, $400. A year and a half, the bottom's gone.
Right.
You get somebody to build you one, you know, it's going to last your lifetime, your children's lifetime, your grandchildren. But, you know, I mean, it is what it is. But, yeah, like you said, building things, it's I've always enjoyed that. I do.
What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when starting your blue-collar career?
I would say the biggest challenge at being an 18-year-old, fresh out of high school, you had to have balls. You had to tighten up because those older guys back then, they were going to push you. Mm-hmm. And they were going to be rude. They were going to be ugly. They were going to be hard on you. But it was for your own good.
Yes.
They wanted to see, they did what they did, see if this kid's going to come back tomorrow. Mm-hmm. They do it again, see if he's going to come back tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And then my main thing was, it was the welding part of it. So you were going to take it, and you had to take it. But they see it, well, man, this kid keeps coming back. And his talent is actually pretty good. Now they start getting a little more, they know you're going to hang around. They know you're worth the effort. So they will help you and go from there. That was a big challenge. You know, I guess a lot of that, on top of that, is me being 18, all my buddies going to college. And I'm working 6 days a week, and they wanted to come in on the weekends and hang out. It was tough. It was hard to do, you know, because the mindset is different. There was no 18-year-old party days anymore. It's work, you know.
For sure.
And I think a lot of these guys, what I'm seeing, the young generation, there's several that are going to make it, but then there's a lot that they don't get it yet. They think it's going to be easy, make 2 or 3 welds today. It's a 5-day-a-week job. No, And we try to instill that in the school when guys they'll say, oh man, I've made 4 4-inch today. Well, dude, I've made 196 16-inch one day.
Wow.
And 20-inch, 170 joints every day for the next 6 weeks. What you got here is the easiest it's ever going to be.
Yep. Take
advantage of it, learn everything, because when you get out there, it ain't soft, you know.
Yeah, and I learned that through my instructor when I was in high school. He was just mean.
Yeah, they are.
But he cared, right?
Right.
Like, and that's why he was mean, is because he did, and plus he had to deal with stupid high school kids that didn't care. So he had that side, but I always tell these kids that the same thing is like, you gotta have thick skin.
Yes.
If you don't have thick skin, you are going to be ripped to pieces, and they're gonna laugh at you on the way out. And being able to take criticism, harsh criticism.
For sure.
I mean, that's just the way, and it's one of those things that's kind of bred into the industry, and it's never gonna go away, because the young kid that goes in there and shows up every day, even though he kind of gets beat up, when he's older, he's going to do that same thing. It's a continuous thing that gets passed on.
It's a cycle. It is, but I think it's beneficial in its own ways. I mean, it weeds out the ones that ain't going to be there, the ones that ain't going to make it, and you have to have tough skin. And I look beyond that because I wanted to weld, so I'm going to keep coming back and throw it at me. And there was a lot of guys that I ran across that, well, if I help you, then you're going to know what I know, and they wouldn't. You know, I mean, you did your best you could, but most of the guys would help you. It's just, they're going to be harsh at first to see, like I said, if you're going to come back, then you'll be all right. You know.
And with my instructor when I was in high school, what kind of clicked for me was he was just being mean, and I was so upset about it. And I was like, I'm going to quit. And then I thought about it, and I was like, if I can't make it through my instructor in high school, I will never make it. Luckily, I was able to look into that and say, hey, look, if I can't make it through this guy, then I know I won't make it in the field. So I was able to just push past that and ultimately built a very strong relationship.
Well, yeah, and he could see that, and so he respects that more, and you respected him more. It's a tough love. So the guys like that, they saw something in you before you ever thought about seeing something in yourself. Yes, I want to do this, I want to do that, you know, but they see it, and they're going to push you because they know what's inside, and I'll do that with our students, the ones that I know, and I'll push them to the limit to get, because I know it's there, and get it out of them. Yeah. And then at the end, when they're through, like, it's always, man, thank you. I appreciate that. So, man, you don't thank me. You did the work. I just knew it was there, and I was going to get it out of you, you know. And so, and that to me is rewarding. That's the rewarding part. It really is. So many years on the road. I'll be 55 this year. So 37 years in the industry altogether. This was a fluke to even land here because I never thought about teaching.
Sure.
Didn't cross my mind.
Yeah.
And it just happened. I talked to the guy. You know, I'd finished the job, and I was just scrolling, and they said they needed instructors. I'm thinking, I'm a welder. What are they paying? That's all I want to know.
Right.
And of course, it doesn't say, and then you got to fill out all this. And I'm like, man, I ain't into this paperwork crap either. But anyway, filled it out, and then get a phone call a couple weeks later, and I'd gone back to work. And so we talked, and he said the money, and I said, really? And all my buddies that are still in the field, the older guys, they're like, man, you got to take it. You got to take it. It's you've had a great career. Finish it in a good way, giving back.
Yeah.
And as far as the field, there's nothing else for me to accomplish. I've accomplished everything that I ever wanted to accomplish, from live lines to the pipeline to your convection boxes, your boiler tubes, lefty, righty, heliarc welding. I mean, I still call it heliarc, but because it's old. But there was nothing left for me to accomplish. So I said I'd give it a year here, and I've actually enjoyed it. I have. Now your winters, but it's a good thing we're indoors a lot.
Yeah, yep. Ventilation blows it back in, keeps it warm.
It's funny too, because I know last year, June. I guess your summers are really, say, July, August, maybe. Mm-hmm. I think we had, if I remember right, there was a week in there. Week and a half, you had 2 days in the 90s, but they weren't back to back. I know they were the same week, and the guy's like, man, it's hot. I'm like, come on, man, really?
Yeah, dude, this ain't nothing.
But then they laugh at me, so it's all fair play.
Yeah.
I come in there loaded up with all kinds of clothes on, and they're wearing a T-shirt and their regular work shirt. I'm like, oh, dude, no way. I got to have the clothes on.
Tell me about what a typical day would look like when you were in the field. What was a regular day for you?
Okay, as far as the pipeline side, work starts at 7 a.m. Usually leave my travel trailer about 10 after 6, depending how far it was. Make one stop, get to the yard. You'd have your safety meeting. You gather your materials, your ice, your rods, whatnot you needed, and depending on the drive from the yard, because it depends on the size of the line too.
Sure.
Where you're going to be. Get out there and you go to work, and you had a 15-minute break, 30-minute lunch, and then another 15 at 3, and then 4:30 you're wrapping it up and getting your 10 and going home. It sounds boring as far as, I guess, probably to the people that hadn't been out there, but as far as the pipeline part, it's fun because you're constantly moving.
Yeah.
We'll start here this morning and we'll end up over by the school this evening,
Sure.
So you're constantly moving and whatnot. Refinery work, I wouldn't care to do it nowadays, just because I've already been there, done it. It's too much, and I respect safety. But
right.
It's, oh man, you got to get a permit to do this, permit to blow your nose, permit, it's just too much at times for me, and I grew up old school ways where we didn't run guards on grinders. We didn't do any of that, it's just, you did what it took to get the job done, and that's what we did, so. Sure. It's not for the new ones for sure. Those days are gone, those guys are gone, but they established a lot, Anyway, that is basically a typical day. Then you get off and you go home, shower, eat, and try to get some rest to do it again, 6 days a week is and a lot of that can be 7 days too. Sure. It gets old. Mm-hmm. A lot of it is you're young, enjoy your freedom, because you really get solid in it, you don't have a life. And I hate to say that, but it is. It's a hard way to make a living because you're on the road and you're working all the time.
Hear that, kids? Take a shower.
Yeah,
Sometimes
for sure.
You got to tell people that.
Well, you do. That ain't no doubt. That is no lie there.
So in your time welding, what was like your most favorite project that you got to work on?
There was a gas storage facility there in my hometown of Katy. It's changed names a few times, but we set 21 compressors in there. I mean, that's a lot. It was a big storage facility. I was 21, 22 years old. I want to say the best probably, because like I said, that's a lot of years for me to go back and a lot of jobs to think, but the one that I can think of was probably the Texas Express. We had 198 miles of 20-inch. We come out of Cleburne, Texas, all the way to Conroe, Texas. And dude, we caused some pretty country, and I was hot passing. I walked every bit of it. It was just,
really?
Yeah, we was there 4 or 5 months. And the reason I say this is because all the welders on that job, this is the only job I've ever been on, we probably had 40 to 50. Every welder could hold their own. You could have stuck them anywhere. There was no drama. Every guy was a good guy, because most of the time you're not getting all that. You're getting a lot of clashing on jobs, stuff like that. But that was, and I knew the majority of them, probably 90% of them, and everything went smooth. That was probably the best job I've been on.
How do you feel when you kind of reflect and look back on your life in the trades, and what's that feeling you get when you kind of look back at what you've done? Is there
Proud.
Proud?
It's about proud, because there's been, it's like you go back to some of those projects going on and thinking of and looking back on them now that like I took part in that. I built that.
Yeah.
I was there, and especially my motto is really that tough weld. That's the one I wanted. I mean, it really is. That's the way I was from day one. When it gets too tough for everybody else, that's when I want.
Yeah.
And it just made me better. Now, when I put that hood down, I may have been bitching the whole time I was making that weld, but they weren't going to know it,
Right,
and at the end of the day, when it shot and it x-rayed and everything was good, it was, yeah, you earned your beer at the end of the day, you know, and you felt good. You felt it was a sense of pride, you know. But looking back on the everything, I don't think I would change anything except for go back, learn to fabricate earlier.
Sure.
At the 1880. But the travels, man, getting to see so many different places across the United States, and it's not just to work, but it's just that taking me to different states and seeing how people live and the friendliness of other people, because we all live different, and it's crazy. You know, from Wyoming to Texas to upstate New York. Yes, we're all human and we're all Americans, but we eat different, we talk different, we see things differently in ways, and it's. But man, the United States, until you get out there and see it, I mean, it's God did a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful country. It really is. I mean, Utah. You look. I mean, there's not an ugly spot all over Utah. You know, to me, just all the states, just my travels. Enjoyed that much. Meeting great people, still good connections here and there. A lot of them have passed because they were older guys at the time. Just overall proud, you know.
Awesome.
I mean, I worked hard, my back hurts and everything aches, but, you know, at the end of the day, I could go home and when I laid down, I knew that I had to earn my money, and I've always wanted that.
Yeah.
Or I didn't want anything handed, you know what I mean? And so it was like, yeah, I could walk off that job. I earned that $30,000 or whatever it was that I made, you know, or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Today's society's different. Everybody wants to get rich quick. And that'd be all great and fine and dandy now at my age. Hell yeah, send me the fat check. But, you know, no, just looking back on it, I'm happy with everything.
Good.
I wouldn't have done it any different, you know. I really wouldn't have. Got to see a lot of beautiful things, make a lot of crazy welds.
That's cool. One thing I really enjoy about working at the school is I used to have this group of kids that would come in every Wednesday into student selection and give me a hard time. But they were all very different. One was from California, one was from Alabama, one was from Alaska, and I think the other was from New York. Like, they were just from all over walks of life. Completely different people, but it's like you really get to see that.
Yeah.
We're Americans, we're red-blooded humans, like an incredible experience and incredible to see that, you know, right here in my little hometown.
It really is, and so I enjoy that. So I know exactly what you're talking about, because as soon as we get new ones or we get involved with them, whatever, first thing I'm asking, well, where are you from? Because I'm curious, you know, maybe I've been there, and there's actually been a few that I've run across that I worked right down the road from where you grew up, you know, at one time or whatever, blah, blah, blah. A few kids from upstate New York. We're in the Scotia, Schenectady area, and they're from that area, and I'm like, wow, okay, blah, 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 you know, but yeah, it really is interesting. That's the neat part to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. What would you say, so you've been an instructor for about a year now. It's funny because I heard a lot of times, you know, as I was learning to weld, you know, oh, people that instruct can't work or can't weld, that's why they teach and blah, blah, blah. But I never planned on working at a school either. It was never in my scope of things, but here I am. But being an instructor, what's your favorite part? What is your favorite part about getting to teach these kids?
Seeing the kid actually take something that I've explained and them doing it and coming back, oh my God, this works. It did work. I'm like, yeah, just, you know, I've done this a little bit, just trust me. Try it. Even though we go, well, so-and-so said, well, okay, that's fine. Just try it. You know, it's a lot of it though is I throw at them. I like all levels, but especially I'll gravitate more towards the ones that are getting closer to graduate. That's when I start to fine tune them, give them the little tricks, the cheat codes that we don't normally teach. Right. You know what I mean? That I know that's out there that we can, you know, you get away with.
You got to know what you're doing a little bit so you can show them these tools.
Right. Exactly. Like I said, at the end of the day, a kid would come up, or even if I dealt with him 2 or 3 times and he was on first shift and I'm on second, and then come graduation, I see him, he'd come up and shake my hand and say, hey man, remember when back blah, blah, blah? Yeah, he said, man, thank you.
Right.
That's, you know, that stuff just makes,
makes it all worth it.
Does. Yeah.
It's incredible. I kind of have a similar perspective. Mine is just being able to take people that come from nothing, you know, and giving them that opportunity and helping them getting to something where welding has done great things for me in my life too. I only welded for about 8 years in the field, but it did a lot for me in that time. And then just being able to give that to people, because there's some people that just come from nothing, you know.
Well, exactly.
And welding can give you those tools to build yourself somewhere. Yeah. You know, and that's kind of one of my favorite things, is just seeing that and giving that to people.
It is. It's true. And you can pick out the kids that you know, like you're talking about. I mean, you can see it. You've been around them enough. It took a little bit at first because, like I said, for 36 years, And it's honest to God truth, I'm getting paid from the neck down, or from the shoulder to the holder, you know?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it. You're just paid to weld. And so when to put the hood down, man, my mind's deep in Mexico laying on the beach, and I'm just welding. And now, becoming an instructor, I've got to take this stuff and really, okay, so how do I word this or whatever? I'm better at hands-on.
Sure.
And so we get in the booth and we get something going, and it's like, hey, if I'm doing a demo, watch. Of course, they're supposed to be. But watch and pay attention, and there's going to be certain times that I'm not going to say anything. I'm just doing my thing. But if you see something, ask me why. Because everything is so repetition, it just comes so easy and natural for me. It's I may be welding along, that, okay. You saw that, come back and ask. Because me, I'm not thinking about it.
Right,
it just comes natural, you know.
Yep.
So getting them to do that and getting them in there and getting interested, I mean, yeah. But it's the kids that come from nothing and they're making something, and you can see they're hungry. They want it.
Yeah, they need it.
You know? Oh, yeah. And I'm going to tell you what, there's a lot of them that are, especially if coming off second shift, they're coming even in the day shift, but second shift. So we started at 2:30. Those kids are there at 9, and they're staying until 10:30 at night, 5 days a week. Dude, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is, you know.
Yep.
We've got 4 or 5 that do that, and man, they've advanced so far. And to help them in the beginning, but then I don't see them no more. Why? Because they stay in their booth and they figure shit out and they try it. And that's what we're here for. We try to explain that, hey, don't just come to me for every little thing. A lot of this you're going to be out. We're not going to be there with you when you leave.
Right.
So some of this you got to remember what you just did, and well, that didn't work. Well, he's okay. Let me try. But then there's a few that you got to hold their hand. You know, I mean, you know how it is.
Yes.
You've been around them. That's the hard part at first, but now it's not so bad. I like I said, I actually enjoy it. But to sit down and write it out, it's more, I got to show you.
When I was learning how to weld, watching my instructor, the most powerful thing I learned is a lot of time everybody gets stuck on looking at the arc and the puddle, and it's like I learned to look away from that and look at their hands and look at their body and like the rod angle and stuff like that, and that's how I was able to pick it up a lot faster because you don't just stare at the bright light the entire time. Like, yeah, you got to know what you're doing with your puddle, but that's almost already over. Your puddle's already forming, and it's just watching their hands and their body language.
Well, it is exactly, because I mean, it's a lot of them. At the very start, of course, they don't know, and that's fine. I mean, that's why they're here. I catch them; they're looking at the welding rod. I said, "Well, don't worry about the welding rod." I said, "We're worried about that puddle." Yeah. And I said, "You got to think about level, and you got to think about gravity. Now, it's going to take some time." But you can learn to manipulate that puddle and what it's going to do. But you got to think about level and gravity, and then when you learn to manipulate it, you know what it's fixed to do. Gravity, I can adjust, like you talked about. They're moving their body, their hands, they're doing something different. You're watching that, but you're also catching that puddle. Oh shit! I see how they do this now. That's why that.
Yep.
They was
That's
able
how
to
you
do
get
this.
that.
Yeah, it's like smearing butter or icing or something else.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But I'm like, if you're watching the rod, you can't see your puddle. So first of all, you're lost. Because here's the thing. I need to see the puddle. I need to be able to control it. And that's where you started talking about body, positions, what their hands were doing different. If you're watching the rod, why I don't watch the rod, where my eyes go, that rod's going to go.
Yeah.
That's basically what I was getting at, you know.
Yeah. How do you personally feel about the stereotype of kids needing to go to college to be successful?
I don't think so, because this country was founded on blue-collar workers. I mean, the backbone. You're the backbone. When you think about it, especially when it comes to oil and gas, that's how the world's ran. It's turned for years and years, or more than 100 years. So yeah, I'm going to be a diehard on that. And there's a lot of them that or I knew that they're not even using what their major was or what they graduated with. And, to each his own. But
Sure.
me, I've always liked working with my hands. And if somebody had to go to a technical school, it's either going to be something to work with your hands, from welding to electrician to even on the medical side. You'll always have a job. Yeah, I'm not college football, like watching all that, but I knew I wasn't going to college anyway, So, but like I said, to each his own. But working with your hands in the trades, to me, you don't get a better feeling,
For sure.
Because you've built something. You've helped build America. Not that a doctor or a lawyer doesn't in their own way, but
Sure. Yeah. I mean, everybody has their place in there.
Yes, sir. Yep.
But you wouldn't be able to have a building for these doctors and lawyers to work in, and it's literally every little thing for the backbones. I'm trying to find a way to explain this better to people, because that's part of my job, is like explaining to people the importance of the trades. And there's some things I want to put together just to show, break down from the basis of an everyday. If you were to measure your entire day and look at all the things you touch and do, 90% of that is due to some blue collar worker. Like it's.
Well, yeah, from your railroads, who built those, cut the ties, all this, that, and the other. But and here's another thing: the way our country's been run here, last several years, whatnot. But so people bitch about oil and gas. They don't realize 90%. I think it's even more than that. It might be 95% of everything you touch is a byproduct of oil and gas.
Yeah. There's
so
medicine,
people,
makeup, the tires on your car, like everything comes. Yeah.
Bottom of your shoes, your toothbrush,
that water bottle right there.
Exactly.
Yep.
What we're sitting in, the way we're talking right, all this is coming.
Yep.
But people don't realize that. They just want to bitch about it.
Yep.
Well, then take all that away and you go live on an island, live naked, and see how you like it. Oil and gas has made the world go round. Electricity. It ain't gonna happen.
And you can't just I think that nuclear is great and it's something we should strive for. Yep. But it's like you can't just remove that from the picture, or you're gonna take away the last 200 years of progression that we've had and start from ground zero. Like, what are you gonna do? You like complaining about it on your cell phone. Well, your cell phone's not gonna charge if we don't have those turning and burning. So absolutely,
100%.
I'm all on the same page there. So out of all the years of you working in the blue-collar trades, how much time were you out of a job or couldn't find a job?
I would say, okay, so going at that, looking at 36 years, going on 37, out of all those years, probably, if you put them together, the months, the weeks, whatnot, probably a year and a half. Because you catch a few weeks here. I'm thinking of it, like I said,
you're
all
accumulative of
all those years. Yes, sir. I would say probably maybe a year, 7 months, 8 months. One time, me and a buddy of mine, I know we did it for just because we had our bank account full. We weren't married, no kids, none of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But we took off 3 months just to lay at the pool. Yeah. We had the money, we'd made the money, we worked our work, and back then the work was good. It's like you could actually get mad, pissed off on a job, and you could leave at noon, and you'd have one before you got home that day. But yeah, we took off 3 months one time, back to back to back, just so we could lay at the pool all summer.
I would do the
so
same
good
thing.
Times like that, you could go back and reminisce on. But yeah, I would say out of 36 years, probably a good year. Just say 2 years if you want to say that. A couple weeks here, a couple weeks there. The longest that I had stayed out that I didn't want to, 2 to 3 months, and that was back in around 1994. Things had kind of slowed down a little bit. I've been hurt on 2 jobs. Both had an ambulance ride. Both were tie-ins. Got a broke arm and a plate, 11 screws out of that, and then almost some dislocated hips out of it. The only thing I can fall back on that as far as is for the students nowadays or young men getting into the trade, and that's with any trade in construction, is pay attention to your surroundings. Mm-hmm. And you get lazy because you've done it over.
Complacency.
Yes. Yes. See, I use small words and y'all got the more educated words, But yes, you get used to it, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so it gets easy to turn your back to something and then boom, it's too late,
Have a head on a swivel.
Oh, yeah.
And pay attention.
100%. And if you got that hood down, your helper, that's your eyes because you're not seeing what's going on. My incident was a ditch collapsed on me. But it happened so fast, nobody can say anything. It is what it is. And then the other one, of course, is not going to name a contractor, but they didn't want to listen to a welder because we know nothing. He had 2 pieces of equipment, and we were coming up under a creek crossing, and we had a stiff end here where you're not going to get no movement. And we had a final tie-in right there. Well, I said, man, you got to get some more equipment. The yard was probably 400 yards we could actually see the yard across the pasture. Oh, no, we got 1 tractor and 1 side boom. All day long they fought this. All day long. From 7 a.m. to 3:30, and we'd finally gotten the clamps. Luck of the draw, whatever was going on, the good Lord was on my side. I felt something. I said, everybody get out of the ditch. Luck of the draw, I was leaning on the pipe when it broke loose from them clamps, and I'm going to tell you what, it rolled some 16-inch 375 wall back like a beer can, about 1.5 inches. It rolled it back. Threw me up out of the ditch. Of course, luck of the draw, I was leaning on it, because if I wouldn't, it'd have broke my hips. I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. But yeah, it's just to pay attention to your surroundings. You get too complacent, as you say. It's too relaxed. Mm-hmm. But shit does happen.
Yeah.
It really does. And nowadays, and I hate to say this too, you're just a number to the contractors. You're just they don't care. If something happens to you, they'll sweep you. They got somebody else to replace you real quick.
Yep.
It's all about the money to them. That's a whole other story. We could get into that, but it's things have kind of gone south in our industry. And me coming here in a situation, I'm like, hey, the only way I can turn it around is with this younger generation.
Yep.
Instilling in them way it's supposed to be, way it used to be. But you got a lot of guys out there now that however they got into it, to each their own. they weren't taught the right way.
So I got one final question, and we're going to wrap it up.
Okay.
Speaking to the next generation, what would be some advice that you would give them coming into this industry?
You're going to have to be tough. I mean, you're going to have to be tough, and you're going to have to hustle. Welding can take you to so many avenues, from oil and gas to structural. Me, I was always like to get into ornamental stuff. You know, making things. It's motorcycle pieces, whatnot. There's so many avenues they could go to. So it's learn it all as far as welding. Don't be scared of any of it. Don't be scared to ask questions. To me, there is, we may think it's a dumb question, but honestly, they don't know. But use your head a little bit of common sense. But I would learn it all, and that way it can take you anywhere. These guys in welding can take you anywhere. Oil and gas, I'm going to say this, it's a roller coaster ride. It's either good or it's bad.
Ups, down.
Yes,
ups,
sir.
down.
It's like going to Vegas, you know. So that's why I say learn it all. You can go over here and you can get on some aluminum stuff, you know, the framework, whatever, and you always have a job. So there's always somewhere to go. That's my main thing is, I guess, like we had covered it earlier, to tell them is have a backbone. Go with the flow. It's going to be tough. There's going to be challenges, but don't give up.
Right.
Let it run its course. You're not going to walk out of the school and land you a $60 an hour job. Maybe 1 out of 50 will.
Right.
You know, because it just doesn't work that way. You're going to have to you got to build yourself.
Yep.
And it takes time. It's like I said, falling back on the guys, it takes a good 10 years before you can actually say, hey, I'm a welder, because there's so much out there to see and do. But have the backbone and don't quit.
Awesome.
Just try. Always want that hard weld.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Always be that guy that wants that hard one. Because the guys are going to be there. You're going to be there like, oh, damn, whoever gets that. I want that weld. Y'all can sit over here on the bench. That's the one I want. And I was always that way.
That's awesome.
And it just made me better and better and better. Like I said, the hood may have been down, I may have been bitching, but I made that weld. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all I can say on that part.
That's
But,
awesome. Well, Lance, it's been a pleasure.
Well, it's been my
Thank you,
pleasure.
sir.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you
Yes, sir.
coming on, and that's a wrap.
Good deal.
Incredible. What a podcast. We got to sit down with Lance, the instructor here at Western Welding Academy. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate you. I'm so glad we got a person like you teaching our students at Western Welding Academy. They deserve it. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment. That's the only way to know when we drop the next podcast. All right. Peace.